The two jewelers couldn't take their eyes off the grandfather clock's steady tick. 90 minutes of waiting in this opulent mansion had turned their excitement into something far more anxious. Neither knew they were witnessing the calm before a storm that would shake the Serenity family to its core. The apprentice wonders aloud why they agreed to meet at 9 o'clock, but it's been almost 50 minutes past that. The madam quickly hushes her, reminding her to play it cool. After all, it's her first rodeo. The newbie brings up how she always has to shut shop when they have these appointments because they never know when they'll wrap up. But she figures there must be a solid reason why the kingdom's top jeweler would go out of their way for some big shot. The madam chimes in, making it crystal clear that ignoring this person could torpedo their business. She drives home the point that if they blow this off, they might as well kiss their shop goodbye. Why? Because having a celeb like Miss Selena rock their bling is a huge deal, a major bragging right. So there's no way they're giving up on this opportunity. They've got to grab it with both hands. The newbie gets it and agrees. She's a bit on edge, mainly because she's meeting Miss Selena for the first time. She can't help but wonder what Miss Selena's morning routine is that keeps her so late. The boss lady, grinning ear to ear, spills the beans. Miss Selena loves to spend her nights wrapped up in her lover's arms. So catching a few extra Z's is a must. She goes on to share that Miss Selena always has a boy toy tagging along. There's even a chance he might show up later. Finally, the scene shifts to our infamous Selena. She's just waking up with a pounding head. Her lover, a 25-year-old named Frederick Bloom, suggests she catch a bit more shut-eye, claiming the soothing sound of rain is just what the doctor ordered for pleasure. He mentions that it's been pouring since sunrise, leaving the room a bit gloomy without any sunshine. Given her heavy drinking last night, he assumes she must be nursing a major hangover. His advice? Sleep it off. But Selena suddenly remembers she has a meeting with the jeweler today and wonders if they're already there. Curious about the day, Selena asks Frederick what day it is. He says it's Wednesday, the day when the moon begins to change. Selena takes this in, wraps herself in her bedsheet, and echoes his words. She's Selena Serenity, a 22-year-old. Frederick, trying to be sweet, asks if her hand hurts and offers a massage. Selena declines, gets up, and tells him to get ready and leave. In the living room, the newbie notes they've been waiting for a good 90 minutes, even after letting the maids know they were there. Just as she's about to lose her cool, the boss lady stands up, signaling for silence. With a quick shoo, she hints that they should pay attention. Someone's coming! Selena strolls in, and the jeweler lights up at the sight of her. Selena, apologetic, mentions they must have been waiting for quite a while. The jeweler, all smiles, insists it's no biggie. Thanks to the thoughtful maids, they had a relaxing tea break after a long journey. The jeweler explains how they even shut their store today just to meet Selena, underlining the importance of this visit. Selena shrugs off the idea of closing her store, pointing out that she's got plenty of staff now who can handle things. She suggests she could just leave them in charge for half the day and then return. The jeweler nods in understanding but gently insists that the day she delivers jewels to Selena is always special. It's a day reserved exclusively for her, out of respect and admiration. The jeweler explains that not accepting other guests on that day is a way of showing their utmost respect to Selena. The jeweler, unable to hide her excitement, then reveals that she's handpicked a necklace for an upcoming party. She can't wait to show Selena the bespoke piece she's put together. Just then, Frederick saunters in and takes a seat, immediately catching the apprentice's eye. She finds herself wondering if this is the guy they'd been discussing earlier. To her, he looks like a work of art, each curve and line carefully crafted. Selena eagerly takes the necklace from the jeweler, expecting something extraordinary. But her face falls when she sees salon diamonds. The jeweler quickly jumps in, admitting she knows Selena isn't a fan of these diamonds. But this time, she insists, they're different. They're top-notch quality and have been crafted with utmost precision. But Selena, holding the necklace, doesn't mince words. She makes it clear she's not into salon diamonds. No matter how good the quality or how beautiful the gem, she just can't stand them. Even arbor, she points out, loses its charm when made from salon diamonds. With a sigh, Selena suggests that maybe this wasn't the best day for this after all, politely stepping back from the situation. The jeweler quickly interjects, urging Selena to hold on. She promises to bring something else if Selena isn't fond of these diamonds. Selena, intrigued, asks about the kids standing nearby, noting that it's not the usual girl who tags along with the jeweler. The jeweler happily explains that the child is currently honing her craft in their workshop. Our girl can't help but comment on how strange it is for a jewelry seller to seem uninterested in the jewelry she's selling. She openly wonders what's up. Then, out of the blue, she asks if Frederick isn't a looker. The apprentice, taken aback, can only muster a surprised, "What?" Selena clarifies, referring to her lover. She noticed the apprentice sneaking peeks at him. Selena admits that she's free to think whatever she wants, but she can't help but notice her lack of focus, even on simple things. She bluntly asks if the apprentice showed up just to ogle her man. The apprentice, realizing her misstep, quickly apologizes, admitting that her behavior was uncalled for. Selena, however, reassures her, acknowledging that beauty naturally draws attention. It's hard to resist a second glance, isn't it? With a knowing smile, Selena gets up, helps Frederick to his feet, and gently guides him to kneel in front of the apprentice. Selena playfully dares the apprentice, asking why she doesn't take a closer look. Is she satisfied now? The apprentice, visibly flustered, stammers an apology, but Selena cuts her off, confessing that even she finds her man irresistible. The apprentice immediately denies having any such intentions, but Selena shakes her head, reminding her that no matter how handsome he is, he's off limits. It's not cool to covet something that's already claimed. The apprentice, looking like she's about to burst into tears, falls to her knees and starts blubbering out apologies. She's really sorry, she didn't mean any harm, please forgive her. The jeweler jumps in, trying to smooth things over, pointing out that it's the kid's first time in a place like this. Everyone can have an off day, right? She even takes some of the blame, admitting she messed up with the gemstone. The kid she brought along was also a bit of a loose cannon, so maybe it's best they hit the road. As Selena breezes out of the room, Frederick slowly gets up. Sway, Selena's main maid and all-around lifesaver, rushes over to him, looking worried. She asks if he's all right, mentioning how Selena seemed to go off on him out of nowhere. Frederick just shrugs it off, saying it's not the first time this has happened. Plus, the jewelers did touch a nerve with Selena. He adds that she's extra touchy today for some reason. Frederick then asks about the date, remembering how Selena's mood took a nosedive when she found out what day it was this morning. Suddenly, it clicks. "Oh, it's his day," he mutters under his breath. Sway nods, adding that it's Wednesday, the day they always have dinner together. And it happens to be the day Selena hates the most. Sway then brings up the weird weather, asking if there's a reason for the sudden storm. It's all happening on the day their master, Izer Lyons Gryan, is coming back. He's only 27, by the way. Next scene, we see Selena and Izer having dinner, while Sway and Raul, Izer's 20-year-old secretary, chat just outside the room. Noticing how tired Raul looks, Sway comments on how tough his business trip must have been. She asks him about it, trying to get the whole story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Raul says the meetings and site visits were mostly good, then asks how things are at the mansion. Sway tells him everything's running smoothly. As they chat, Raul drops a fun fact. Selena and Izer, who've been married for 4 years now, have this weird ritual. Every Wednesday and Sunday when they sit down to dinner, there's this strange tension in the air. It's something that makes their regular meals together pretty interesting. Wow, I'm sure this was a plot twist you didn't see coming. Sway agrees, saying that their relationship seems even more fascinating now than when they first got married. Raul adds that it's especially noticeable on certain days, like when Selena dumped a glass of water over Izer. He remembers how his heart was pounding that night, keeping him awake. Sway nods, recalling the day when both Selena and Izer were in a foul mood. Even Izer, who's usually so calm, couldn't help but snap back at her. Things got heated, and out of nowhere, Selena threw her water at him. Then she stormed out, leaving Izer soaking wet. But what surprised them most was that Izer didn't even flinch. Raul reflects on how peaceful things have been lately, especially compared to the drama of that day. But he can't shake off this uneasy feeling that comes with the calm. Looking through the glass door, he notices Selena barely touching her food. He wonders aloud why they keep having these stressful dinners every week if they're such a hassle. Sway breaks it down for us, saying that Selena and Izer both have a stake in Serenity Hotel. This isn't just a business to them, it's a family legacy tied up with the Serenity Hotel and the whole Serenity clan. Even though they might not see eye to eye, they're both dead set on protecting the Serenity name. It's like an unspoken vow to the family business they've inherited. Despite their personal squabbles, they're united by this common goal. Sway adds that both Selena and Izer have their own reasons for wanting to protect Serenity. It's not always smooth sailing, but they've accepted the responsibility that comes with keeping the Serenity legacy alive. It's like a silent pact between them, an unwritten rule they follow. Their commitment to Serenity, fueled by their personal motivations, is what keeps them connected. At dinner, Izer switches gears and starts talking shop. He suggests they set aside some time on Sunday to discuss business matters. There are some documents that need Selena's signature, so he asks her to swing by the office later in the day. Selena's intrigued. Usually, he'd use the family seal or sign the papers himself. She casually asks him why she needs to sign these papers, trying to figure out why he's changing things up. Selena also gently reminds Izer that even though he's great at his job, it's not a good idea to make all the decisions without her input. Izer calls over Sway and tells her that Selena doesn't seem to understand what he said earlier. So, he repeats himself, because of Selena's important business matters, Sway needs to make sure she gets to the office in 1 hour. An hour later, Selena finds herself in Izer's office. He hands her the documents and asks her to sign them. Selena's still wondering why she needs to sign these papers when Izer usually uses the family seal. She's not one for breaking tradition, but her curiosity gets the best of her. She decides to play along and see what Izer is up to by asking for her signature. Selena confronts Izer about his plan to stop supporting 8 families who are honorary trustees of the Serenity Hotel by the end of the year. Izer coolly points to the pen on the table, indicating that he wants her to sign the documents. Selena, taken aback, asks him if he's lost his mind. These 8 families are important. They've been helping Grandma since the hotel was established. Selena expresses her gratitude towards these families for their financial and consulting contributions. They've played a huge role in building up the hotel. It's a tradition in Serenity to send thank you gifts to these families every year on the hotel's anniversary. It's a way to show appreciation and ensure they receive their deserved benefits. This practice emphasizes the importance of reciprocity and respect within the Serenity family. Selena's taken aback when Izer casually confesses he knew about the tradition all along. She's like, "Wait, what? You know about it and you still want me to sign those papers?" Izer, with a smirk, says he finds the whole tradition thing kind of amusing. He starts talking about how he wants to take control and make things clear, just like when Selena inherited the hotel. His point? Things should be crystal clear, especially when it comes to inheritance and rights. That way, there'll be no confusion for future generations. Izer then throws a curveball, asking if the next generation will even want to run the hotel. He doubts they'll appreciate the privileges they've been given. He's clearly frustrated, saying Selena doesn't seem to care about what these families do with their privileges. Izer's on a roll now, complaining about the lack of a clear investment agreement. He accuses Selena of using tradition as an excuse to give away money. He's shocked by the amount of cash she spent on keeping the hotel running. But Selena stands her ground. She says her main goal is to spread the generosity of Serenity without keeping score. She believes it's up to the descendants of those 8 families to decide what to do with their tradition. For her, the connection with these families is everything. But Izer, not quite convinced, wonders if they see things the same way Selena does. Suddenly, Selena's had enough. She throws the papers on the floor, outraged that Izer would suggest ending their relationship over some documents. She's in total disbelief, wondering if he really thinks she'd sign those papers. Side, Raul is chatting with Sway, hoping everything's okay with Selena. He's worried, wondering why she's taking so long. Sway reassures him, saying their meal ended on a peaceful note. Raul agrees, realizing it's been a while since they've seen each other. Back in the office, Izer tells Selena to pick up the papers, sign them, and get out. He says it with authority, but Selena isn't having any of it. She challenges him, asking who he thinks he is, giving her orders. She reminds him that this was her grandmother's and mother's office. She boldly tells him that he's the one who needs to leave her house. Izer stands up, clearly frustrated, and points out that she seems to forget some important details. He confidently says he's ready to handle whatever she throws his way. He emphasizes that all he needs is her signature so he can wrap up his tasks. He pleads with her to stop resisting and just sign the papers, promising it'll make things easier for both of them. Selena takes the document from him, unsure of what to do. Then, in a moment of defiance, she tears it up, saying it doesn't matter anymore. She asks him what he thinks of that. Just then, Raul starts calling for Izer. Izer goes outside to see what's going on, and Raul tells him there's a surprise guest. Izer's surprised. He didn't schedule any meetings today. He tells Raul to send the visitor away because he's not done talking to Selena. Raul's voice punctures the silence again, and this time he's got a name that makes Izer sit up straight, Mrs. Lance's Serenity. Yeah, you heard right, the big boss lady herself, the one who started it all, the Serenity Hotel. Izer raises an eyebrow and steps outside, curious about what could have brought the matriarch out on such a gloomy day. She greets him with a warm smile, telling him she just got back from a long business trip and couldn't wait to check in on him. Mrs. Serenity insists she has something for Izer. He laughs it off, telling her to drop the formalities. He assures her everything's cool and suggests she spend the night since it's already late. Mrs. Serenity gracefully accepts his impromptu invitation, but mentions she'll have to leave early in the morning. She then wonders why that fiery fellow didn't come out to greet her. Izer suggests they move the conversation inside. Just as they're about to step in, Selena appears out of nowhere and drops a bombshell. She tells them how Izer handed her some weird documents and even pressured her to sign them. Selena doesn't hold back, voicing her concerns about Izer's plan to cut off the benefits for the 8 families and scrap the tradition her grandma and mom cherished. She thinks he's too focused on the financial losses and isn't seeing the big picture. Uncertain, she questions if letting him run Serenity was a good idea. Mrs. Serenity asks Izer if this is true, and he nods, confirming Selena's story. Mrs. Serenity sighs, admitting that managing the chaos of the 8 families has been a real pain. She doesn't know where to start sorting things out. Looking at Izer, she gives him credit for his efforts with a nod and a well done, but also mentions that this situation needs to be dealt with quickly. Selena is surprised by her grandma's words. Did she just say he did a good job? She thinks, confused by the unexpected praise. She knows her grandma isn't one to give compliments easily. Selena wonders if her grandma's compliment was genuine or if she's just confused. Selena voices her thoughts, saying this isn't the Lance's Serenity she knows. She recalls when her grandma forced her to marry Izer, giving him their family property and the hotel. She jokes that her usually sharp and formidable grandma might have gone a bit crazy. Later, Selena goes to her room and immediately calls for Fredrick. He gets up and hugs her, looking worried. He asks if anything went wrong at the office. Selena sighs heavily and admits she wishes Izer would disappear. She says he not only took their house and hotel, but also changed her into someone she doesn't recognize. Selena is still trying to wrap her head around everything that just happened. She tells Frederick how her grandma Lance's Serenity seems to have turned into a totally different person. She's pretty peeved about Izer just waltzing in and grabbing everything from them. It's like she's stuck in some alternate reality where this stuff actually happens. The only thing that still feels real to her is the Serenity Hotel. It's like a lifeline, you know? Every time she sees Izer, she feels like she's been sucker punched. The way he looks at her makes her feel small and insignificant, like she's just some clueless kid. His eyes are cold and judgmental, and it's really messing with her confidence. It's gotten to the point where she can't stand being around him anymore. Selena's desperate for this to be some bad dream. Her anxiety is through the roof, her heart's pounding like a drum, and she's freaking out. She turns to Frederick for help, but she's so overwhelmed she can barely breathe. She's even started thinking about, well, let's not even go there. But then Frederick steps in, pulls her close, and gives her a sweet, comforting kiss. Frederick tells her not to lose hope, and that everything will work out in the end. He advises her to stop worrying so much. Selena, feeling like she's about to fall apart, pours out all her fears and confusion to him. She's worried about what will happen if they just let that guy do whatever he wants, especially since it seems like everyone's on his side. Frederick tries to reason with her, saying that Izer isn't all bad. He argues that without Izer's help, things could be even worse for the family and the hotel. But Selena's not having any of it. She gets really heated and tells Frederick that she never asked for Izer's help. She admits that her grandma made all the decisions, but she insists that she didn't need him. In a bitter tone, she calls him the son of the Gryan family. Selena starts to wonder about Izer's role in Serenity's transformation. She can't shake her suspicions about him because of his family background. Even though he seems to be doing good things for Serenity, she's worried that his true colors will show eventually. She fears that one day Izer will take over Serenity and make it part of the Gryan Empire. And then Selena has this chilling thought. What if Izer decides to get rid of her if she gets in his way? The thought scares her so much that she considers letting go of Serenity rather than being controlled by the Gryans. Overcome by her emotions, she breaks down, mourning the loss of her beloved Serenity. Meanwhile, Izer's chilling in the living room, having a heart-to-heart with Grandma Serenity. She's got this big task for him, something about handling the tricky business of the 8 families. Apparently, it's an old issue that dates back to the civil conflict days, but they never really got around to sorting it out. Now it's all tied up with their business, making it a tough nut to crack. Izer, being Izer, assures her he's got everything under control and tells her not to worry. But Grandma Serenity, still stewing over recent happenings, wonders if it was really necessary to get Selena's signature. Izer plays it cool, saying it was just a way to keep Selena in the loop. Grandma Serenity points out how Izer seems to be putting a lot of effort into Selena. Izer quickly shoots down that idea, saying that compared to the sacrifices he's made, like giving up everything and basically living like Selena doesn't exist, any effort towards her is nothing. He even says he'd prefer it if Selena were a bit more rebellious and angry because it would show she's got some fight in her to protect Serenity. Izer goes on to say that Selena's resistance is just her way of trying to keep Serenity safe from any potential harm caused by her actions. Grandma Serenity, recognizing Izer's dedication, promises to stand by him. But Izer, ever the casual guy, says he's already dealt with all the devils standing in their way. Grandma Serenity can't help but be impressed, acknowledging that he's managed to clear all the obstacles and challenges off their path. Taking a moment to reflect, Grandma Serenity starts talking about Izer and Selena's relationship. She admits she initially wanted them to be together because she thought they'd make a nice couple. But she warns Izer not to be too harsh on Selena. She opens up about her own past, saying she's also been through some tough times because of her first love. She talks about how her heart was broken once, and it left her in pieces. She decided to give up on love and throw herself into her work, enjoying her youth while she still could. Eventually, she got married and had Bella Tia, Selena's mom. Those years with her husband and Bella were some of the happiest of her life. But then the Budden War happened, and her husband was killed in battle. Grandma Serenity's voice shakes as she remembers the pain of losing her husband. It was like her world had fallen apart. The fear of her own death started to creep in, especially when she found out she was sick. But what hit her the hardest was the worry for her little girl. Every day, she feared that Bella would be left alone in the world after she was gone. She spent her whole life making the hotel what it is today, and the thought of losing it? Not on her watch. So she decided to toughen up Bella from a young age, teaching her to be as fiery as she is. But despite all this, Bella decided to tie the knot pretty early on after inheriting Serenity. This led to her having 2 kids, Harper and Selena, while still being super young. Bella, not wanting Selena to grow up too fast, took a different route with her. She wanted Selena to have a carefree childhood filled with laughter and love. So Selena grew up without a worry in the world, enjoying every stage of her life without any pressure. Talk about being spoiled. But hey, it's all because of Bella's loving and giving nature. When it came to the family business, Bella thought that there was plenty of time for Selena to learn everything. But then an accident happened, shattering Selena's world when she was just 17. Suddenly, she was expected to run the massive Serenity estates. With no prep for this kind of role, Selena was thrown into a world of business madness. This unexpected turn of events forced Grandma Serenity out of her peaceful retirement. The grief of losing Bella weighed heavily on her, but she had to step up. She took on running the household and helping Selena navigate the business. But let's face it, Selena was still a kid, and even just signing a contract felt like climbing a mountain for her. To make things easier, Grandma Serenity hired some help. But life wasn't done throwing curveballs. Stress from work started taking a toll on her health. To make matters worse, Serenity's finances were on the edge of a cliff. They were in the middle of a storm with threats coming from all directions. It was Grandma Serenity and Selena against the cutthroat business world. It was like they were surrounded by sharks just waiting for them to show any sign of weakness. Just when they thought there was no way out, Izer stepped in. Despite their past issues, they decide to team up. Even if that meant Selena might end up resenting her grandma, handing over Serenity to him seemed like the only smart move. Since then, Grandma Serenity and Izer have been through a whole lot of stuff, making choices left and right. And each choice seemed perfect at the time. But now, as Grandma Serenity is gearing up to share her final thoughts, she's got this one wish. She hopes that somehow Izer can see things from Selena's point of view. 'Cause let's face it, they've been using Selena's resources without her even knowing. As the night rolls in, they find themselves getting real with each other. Izer, in his soothing voice, tells her he gets her concerns and asks her not to worry so much. He even reminds her to put her health first, which is sweet, right? Then he remembers something she mentioned earlier about wanting to give him something. So, he nudges her to spill the beans. And boy, does she have a surprise for him. Her eyes light up with excitement as she reveals that she's stumbled upon something pretty interesting. Seems like we'll be left wondering what the surprise is as the scene shifts to the next morning where we see Serena, still in the land of dreams. Fredrick, on the other hand, is cozied up next to her with a book that's got him hooked. Just then, Sway walks in looking all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to seize the day. Frederick gives a subtle nod towards Selena and lets Sway know that she just hit the sack an hour ago. He suggests letting her sleep in a bit more, promising that Selena will join them for breakfast later. Sway, giving him a warm smile, appreciates the thoughtfulness and agrees that a little extra snooze time sounds like a good plan. Since Sway starts fussing with the blanket, Frederick suggests leaving it be since Selena often has a hard time getting a decent night's sleep. He explains how she usually wakes up hunting for the lost covers, especially when the sun starts streaming in. So, he kindly asks if they could lower the curtain a bit to keep the room cozy without risking an early wake-up call. While Sway's adjusting the curtains, she tells him about the personal doctor coming over around noon for their routine health checkup. Frederick nods, getting the gist of it. He thinks he'll use the doctor's visit as an excuse to sneak off to the flower garden. Plus, the weather's nice and cool today, making it even more tempting. Carrying on the conversation, Sway lets slip that the greenhouse is bursting with summer flowers right now. She thinks it's the perfect time for a leisurely walk, maybe with a coffee in hand. According to her, the view at Serenity is something you don't want to miss. Come noon, Izer's chilling in the living room, chatting with Dr. Astons and Dr. Renoy. Dr. Renoy casually mentions that apart from a bit of fatigue from his recent business trip, Izer seems to be in good health. Then, smoothly transitioning, he asks about Mrs. Lance's health. Izer adds that when he saw Mrs. Lance yesterday, he noticed she seemed to have lost some weight. He mentions that she still seems to be smoking and drinking. Dr. Renoy lets it slip that she's not exactly planning on quitting anytime soon. She even made a joke about how much longer she'd live if she did kick those habits. Dr. Renoy, sounding a bit worried, stresses how these vices could seriously harm her health down the line. Izer asks for some help in persuading Mrs. Lance to quit smoking and drinking. Shifting topics, he asks about Selena's health. Dr. Astons drops a bombshell, revealing that Selena's struggle with insomnia and sleep disorders has been getting worse lately. To make matters worse, she's also been losing weight. Dr. Astons, sounding apologetic, emphasizes that Selena needs to prioritize eating and resting over work for her overall health. During their chat, Dr. Astons, being cautious, says there's something she needs to discuss. But as Selena's doctor, she feels it's important. Izer encourages her to go ahead. Dr. Astons then starts to recall a recent heart-to-heart she had with Selena. She tells Izer to tread lightly when it comes to the baby talk. You see, despite being married for 4 years, she's a bit worried. As both a doctor and a longtime friend, she's seen Selena grow up and knows her health struggles all too well. She goes on to say that while young folks are often considered resilient, she has serious reservations about Selena getting pregnant right now. She doesn't sugarcoat it, childbirth could be risky for both Selena and the baby. So, if they're thinking about starting a family, she suggests waiting until Selena is in better shape. Izer gets it. He stands up, thanking them for their time and advice. He acknowledges that it's a heavy topic but says he's got to get back to work. Before he leaves, he suggests they enjoy some tea. Then he's off to conquer his to-do list, leaving the room quiet. Feeling the weight of the conversation, Dr. Renoy asks Dr. Astons if they should have broached such a sensitive subject. Dr. Astons just shrugs, saying there's not much else they could do. After all, they promised Selena they'd share all medical info with both her and Izer. Dr. Renoy muses that even though things are tricky between Selena and Izer, as doctors, they have to give the best advice they can. But then she questions whether their marriage is really based on love or just a contract. She even notes that Izer seemed a bit irritated, which isn't like him, especially when it comes to Selena. Dr. Renoy states the obvious. No matter what, Izer is still Selena's husband in public. She mentions the rumors that he should keep an eye on his wife to prevent any scandals. She suggests trying to see things from his perspective, dealing with all the gossip and speculation. Dr. Renoy admits that if she were in his shoes, she'd probably be feeling pretty lousy too. Meanwhile, back in Selena's room, Sway is working her magic on Selena's hair. She asks Selena if she heard about Dr. Aston's advice and reminds her to eat well, not just snack on grapes. Selena gets it and points to some items she brought along, sparking curiosity about what's inside. Sway then shares that Mrs. Lanza brought an opera cake the day before, handmade with care. She insists Selena should give it a try, even if it's just a tiny bite. Selena, however, stands up with a dismissive tone, wondering if the forgetful Mrs. Lanza left behind this seemingly useless treat. She suggests either handing it to the servants or simply tossing it away. Curious about Frederick's whereabouts, Selena inquires if he's playing hide-and-seek again. Sway, however, shares a dose of reality, emphasizing the need for extreme caution when outsiders are around. She hints that Frederick's presence tends to fuel rumors, and in this delicate situation, they want to keep things under wraps rather than letting speculation run wild. Selena, with a raised eyebrow, questions if there's anyone left in the entire kingdom unaware that she's practically glued to Frederick. She points out that their contract explicitly states that attending doctors must maintain the utmost secrecy, covering everything witnessed within the mansion. Looking ahead, she asserts that regardless of whoever shows up, she prefers Frederick at her side. Sway nods in understanding, offering to fetch Frederick, but Selena waves it off, deciding to go herself. Sway casually mentions Frederick's whereabouts, saying he's chilling in the glass house. As Selena makes her way there, she can't help but voice her frustration about the persistent headache that's been haunting her. She attributes it to the constant anxiety ever since Izer returned to the mansion, creating a palpable sense of tension. Wishing for a moment of relaxation away from the mansion, Selena contemplates asking Frederick to join her in a serene spot. However, as she spots him, her plans take an unexpected turn. He's in the company of someone else. She can't help but mutter to herself, wondering if that someone happens to be Izer. In Izer's thoughts, he observes Mrs. Lance's physical decline, noting her increasing weakness. Despite Selena's regular health checkups, he can't ignore the fact that her condition is deteriorating. Feeling the urgency, he believes that the pivotal moment has arrived, and it's time to set a plan in motion. Izer shifts his gaze to Frederick, mentioning that he's heard quite a bit about him during his absence. Seems the rumors followed Selena wherever she went. Frederick casually responds, attributing it to Selena's preference for keeping him in the loop. Izer, slightly puzzled, comments that he thought it was the other way around, assuming Frederick was the one wanting the rumors to circulate. Izer presses on, suggesting that everything left in the household significance, from the furniture to the murals and even the people within and beyond its walls, himself included. Frederick, however, counters confidently, stating that he and Selena are the rightful owners of the house. As such, they don't require permission from outsiders like Izer to make decisions about their home. Izer unfolds the reasons behind allowing Frederick into their lives 2 years ago and letting him stay to this day. He explains that if Selena wrestles with insomnia and needs someone to calm her restlessness or soothe her sensitive temper during sleepless nights, he's there for her. Wherever he goes, his primary mission is to protect her, ensuring she doesn't encounter any danger. Frederick reflects on Selena's struggles, her insomnia, her constant anxiety, her insecurities, and her unpredictable behavior. He's trying to figure out if Izer really gets why she's always on edge. Izer, for his part, admits he could have handled things better. He even throws in a mention of the current mess they're in and the problems that could come up if Selena's health goes downhill. Izer then talks about knowing his place and warns Frederick not to get in the way of his plans. Meanwhile, Selena is watching from afar, making a silent promise to herself that if Izer tries to hurt Frederick, she won't sit back and let it happen. Frederick stands his ground, saying he's the only one who can keep Selena stable. He tells Izer to stop talking nonsense if he doesn't want his perfect plan to go south. Frederick's clearly annoyed that Izer thinks he knows him and doesn't like being treated like an object. But Izer doesn't back down. He asks Frederick if he really thinks Izer doesn't know anything about him. He tells Frederick he did a thorough background check before letting him into the house. Izer even asks if he ever gave Frederick permission to go into his wife's room. Then he drops a bombshell. He thinks Frederick is trying to win over Selena to get his hands on the Serenity sword. Izer reminds Frederick that he's the one in control, hinting at a secret he's discovered. He tells Frederick to be clear about his boundaries and challenges the idea that Frederick is there just because Selena wants him around. He says Frederick's control over Selena is what's really helping him. Izer tells Frederick to stay away from parties to avoid rumors spreading. He says gossip is bad for the Serenity name. Just as things are getting heated, Selena bursts in, demanding to know what's happening. Selena tries to grab onto Izer, asking what he's done to Frederick and her. But before she can finish, Izer pulls away and she falls to the ground. Frederick rushes over, asking if she's okay. Selena points out where it hurts, and Frederick, now angry, asks Izer why he did that. Selena, still on the ground, is trying to figure out why Izer and Frederick are there. She sees blood on her hands and feels pain in her leg. Frederick quickly picks her up and carries her away from the scene, worry written all over his face. In Frederick's room, Selena's trying to piece together what just went down between him and Izer. "What was all that about?" she asks. Frederick shrugs it off. "Oh, we just ran into each other and said hi." Turns out, Izer didn't even know Frederick was hanging out in the flower garden, so their meeting was pure chance. Frederick checks on Selena, who took a nasty spill earlier. "You okay?" "I've told you a million times those heels are an accident waiting to happen," he warns her. Selena loves her heels though, and isn't ready to give them up. Selena is still shaken from her fall and is bothered by Izer's lack of reaction. She can't help but feel a chill run down her spine every time she thinks about him. His unpredictable behavior frustrates her, especially because she can't understand why she tripped and hurt herself. Feeling low, Selena starts doubting herself, wondering if she's as useless as a fly swatter. Frederick holds her close, asking if she's all right. She just wants to lay down for a bit, and Frederick carries her. He's curious about Izer and asks Selena about him. "Why do you care?" Selena snaps back, frustrated. She admits she doesn't understand Izer either and finds him maddening. Frederick, still curious, wants to know more about Izer since they're living under the same roof. Selena asks if he knows about the Gryan family, which Frederick does. They're big shots in the construction business and own the biggest architecture firm in the kingdom. Frederick learns that Izer's full name is Izer Lyons Gryan. Selena casually mentions that Izer is a son of the Gryan family, but he's cut ties with them. She doesn't know why, but she wouldn't be surprised if his family is the reason. According to Selena, the Gryans are a dangerous bunch. They're hungry for money, power, and fame and won't hesitate to use any means necessary to get what they want. They're involved in shady stuff, but you'd never know it from their public image. Izer's mom was revealed to have committed a serious crime and took her own life when it was exposed. The Gryans did everything they could to protect their business and silence anyone who posed a threat. After her death, the family started doing a lot of charity work, maybe trying to make up for their dark past. The Gryan family sure did a number on their public image. They were like the Kardashians of the criminal underworld, only instead of reality TV, they used charity work to cover up their dirty deeds. But instead of keeping them out of the spotlight, it just made them more famous. Go figure. Public loved their generous acts, but little did they know about the skeletons in their closet. Selena's got no love for the Gryans, calling them a bunch of two-faced liars and pretty much the bad guys of their story. She can't help but wonder why Izer cut ties with his family. Was he the black sheep? Or was he just tired of playing along with their games? The way Selena sees it, Izer might have been the weak link in the family. Maybe he got tired of their ruthless ways and decided to break free. This thought gives Selena a headache. She just can't get her head around why her grandma would want to bring a Gryan back into the fold. Back at the office, Izer's assistant Raul notices his boss lost in thought. Suddenly, Izer jumps up and leaves without a word, leaving Raul wondering where he's off to. Frederick's place, Izer barges in unannounced. Selena, thinking it's sway, is surprised to see him. Izer just invites himself in like he owns the place. If Selena had known it was Izer, she would have told him to beat it. She doesn't like him in her space, and she tells him as much. But Izer doesn't seem to care. He's on a mission, and he's not letting Selena's hurt feelings stand in his way. Selena tells Izer to get out, but he just laughs it off. He reminds her that she once said she wanted to be the boss of Serenity. Now, he thinks she's just a weak little girl. He wants to see what she'll do when she's all alone. Selena, annoyed, asks him if he really came here just to insult her. But Izer has other plans. He's here to teach her a lesson. Selena's not sure why Izer's here, but he suggests that maybe Fredrick should leave them alone. Fredrick's busy tending to Selena's wound and can't leave right now. Selena understands and tells him to step out for a bit. Once they're alone, Izer takes a look at Selena's injury. She doesn't know why he's doing this, and he doesn't offer an explanation. Instead, he just bandages her arm. Selena's not happy about it. She didn't ask for his help and she wants to know why he's here. But Izer just tells her to hold still so she doesn't hurt herself more. Selena can't help but wonder if Izer's pretending to be nice just to trick her. But Izer says he thought giving her space was the right thing to do. Now he's not so sure. Selena wants to know why he's back and what this lesson he keeps talking about is. She's frustrated and confused by his mixed signals. She doesn't understand why he thinks he can just walk into her life and start calling the shots. She's the master of Serenity, not him. Izer looks at Selena, trying to figure out why she's so mad at him. He reminds her of when Serenity was barely holding itself together and how he and Mrs. Lanza did their best to patch things up without asking for anything in return. He gets it, she doesn't like outsiders butting in, but they had to get hitched to save the company. If not for that, he would have stayed out of it and just managed things from the sidelines. He tries to make her understand that the Serenity she's been trying to protect on her own was like a sandcastle waiting for the tide to come in. Looking back at their wedding, she can't really be mad at him because he gave her a chance to be more than just a figurehead. Izer brings up that time Selena signed a contract that was actually bad for Serenity. She had no clue, of course. Then there was the auction fiasco where she got tricked and ended up getting hurt. He chose to keep his mouth shut and didn't say anything even though he could have. He asks her why she's so angry when she's the one who's messed up and should be feeling down. She blames everything on him just because he's a Gryan. She calls his family trash and refuses to trust anyone with that last name, putting a firm line between them and her. Selena thinks Izer won't stop until he gets everything he wants, even if it means getting rid of her to take over Serenity. She wonders why they're even pretending to get along when he clearly doesn't want peace. Izer is surprised that she still thinks he's going to off her to take control of Serenity. He holds her chin gently and asks her what she thinks he should do. Despite the tension, he wishes her a long life and tells her she's worth more than she thinks. He points out her helplessness and asks her to stop comparing his family to trash. In the middle of their argument, he tells her he's tired of her acting like a brat. He's had enough of her empty pride and rudeness. He wants her to stop blaming him and their grandma for everything that's gone wrong. It's more than just asking her to change her ways. He's asking her to see things from a different perspective. He urges her to quit living what he bluntly calls a lousy life. He wants her to swap the scheming for strategizing and focus on tackling the challenges they both face. As the argument heats up, he insists that she still has time to build back her self-respect. Selena, stung by his words, fires back with a stream of insults as he heads for the door. But she's not one to back down from a fight. With a determined glint in her eyes, she announces her plan to fight back and learn from this. As he leaves, Selena gears up mentally for the showdown ahead. Her mind focuses on his smug attitude. She's resolved to show him what she's made of and earn his respect. A few days later, Raul runs into Mr. Lewis outside. At a ripe old age of 27, Mr. Lewis is not just Raul's buddy but also a workmate of Izer. Being the helpful guy he is, Raul grabs Mr. Lewis's bag and jokes about why he isn't relaxing after a recent business trip. Mr. Lewis, looking a bit tired, spills the beans. The business trip ended not too long ago, but his boss, Izer, wants to have a chat. Seems like he's the designated worn-out one, clocking in fatigue daily. Selena walks in, holding Frederick, and Mr. Lewis greets her. It's been a while since they last saw each other. He checks on her, casually asking if she's doing okay. He notices her walking like she's out for a leisurely stroll but wonders why she's limping. He asks about her ankle, but Selena keeps mum. Raul, seeing the awkwardness, suggests they head inside. After all, Izer's probably waiting for them. As Mr. Lewis takes a closer look at little Frederick, he feels like he's seen him before. But he can't quite put his finger on it. Inside Izer's office, he notes that he hasn't seen Selena in a year. He casually mentions that she hasn't changed and wonders when he'll officially be her friend. But Izer, being straightforward, tells him to give up because Selena doesn't exactly like anything connected to him. Louis, confident as ever, claims that everyone in the kingdom knows about him. His sociability is like a magic potion that lets him get along with anyone. He's always up for a challenge. But then he's confused. Why doesn't Selena dislike Raul? Last time he saw them, they seemed pretty friendly. Izer reveals that Raul is the exception. Selena actually likes having him around. Louis jokes if it's Raul's charm that's winning Selena over. But Izer clarifies it's not just Raul's good looks, it's because he reminds Selena of her brother Harper's. Izer then jumps in, letting slip that Selena's the youngest one living in this mansion. He drops another bombshell, revealing there's a guy around who's somewhat of a doppelganger to Selena's late brother. According to Izer, this might make Selena feel more like a kid sister and step up her game. And in true Izer fashion, he tells Louis to quit his yapping and get with the program. Louis chimes in, sharing his recent encounter with a good-looking young man. Could this be Selena's new boyfriend? With a puzzled look, he digs deeper, questioning the status of Selena's love life. I mean, they're in a contract marriage, aren't they? Is it cool for her to be out and about with another guy while he's still living in the same house? He can't help but vent his frustration. He's technically her husband, yet it seems like everyone's cool with it. Izer claps back, stating that everyone in this house is free to do what they want, so Louis needs to chill. But Louis isn't having it, arguing that there's zero chance to build any kind of relationship in this place. A memory flashes in Izer's mind. He remembers something Selena once told him. Using this insight, he brushes off Louis's worries, stating flatly that they didn't like each other from the start. As far as Izer's concerned, their relationship is what it is, and nothing's going to change that. Caught off guard, Louis asks if there's anything about Selena that Izer doesn't like. Izer doesn't beat around the bush. He focuses on the intensity of Selena's gaze, comparing it to a razor-sharp knife. He says her eyes always seem like she's plotting his downfall. He's not a fan of the suspicion and wariness that her eyes project, admitting that sometimes it feels like she could eat him alive with just a glance. Izer shares more, revealing a softer side of Selena. He notices how she fights back tears, even when they're threatening to fall. It's like an internal battle, where emotions are on the brink of spilling out, but she bravely holds them back, refusing to cry in front of him. This silent struggle quietly unfolds, tugging at Izer's heartstrings. He finds himself puzzled by why these seemingly insignificant details weigh on his mind. As the conversation continues, Izer admits he gets annoyed every time he sees Selena in this vulnerable state, her hands and feet shaking with anger as she fights back the tears. In a surprising twist, Louis asks if Izer is purposely pushing Selena's buttons to make her cry for his own amusement. Izer, unapologetically, confirms he's doing exactly that. Meanwhile, Selena and Fredrick are having a peaceful picnic in a charming garden. Fredrick curiously asks about Selena's decision to dive into the business world with Izer. It seems a bit out of character, he notes. But Selena, reflecting for a moment, admits she's not entirely happy about it either. She's wary because Izer tends to put himself first and doesn't seem to care about her needs or concerns. Selena goes on to say that something feels different this time around. Izer promised to show her the ropes at work. Since she's still pretty young, she didn't get the chance to learn from her mom and grandma right from the start. Despite any ulterior motives Izer might have, she sees this as an opportunity to level up. Once she's got everything under control, she has a clear plan. She'll show him who's boss, take charge of her life, and stand on her own 2 feet. Frederick, being the good mate that he is, tells Selena to go for it, though he doesn't seem too thrilled about it. He jokes that without her around during the day, he might die of boredom. Quick on her feet, Selena has a solution. Why not make the most of the evenings together? Changing the topic, she brings up the weather and casually compliments Frederick's new hairdo. She says it's getting longer and looks pretty rad. Fredrick, remembering a time at a jewelry shop, playfully mentions that she called him pretty back then too. They banter back and forth as he admits he's not a fan of being called pretty. Frederick, ever the joker, asks why he can touch her all over but isn't allowed to pinch her cheeks. Selena teases him, calling him a big baby. Not one to lose, Frederick pulls her close, reminding her he's older. But Selena isn't having any of it, questioning what age has to do with acting like a kid. She adds that if he grew a beard, she couldn't pinch his cheeks because it would scratch her. Wondering who'll come out on top, Selena puts the question out there. Frederick, always game for a challenge, suggests they settle it with a kiss. But Selena, not one to back down, flips the script and dares him to make the first move. Back at the office, Izer asks Louis when he last saw Selena and where she was heading. Louis, the eagle-eyed spy, says he saw her heading out for a picnic, with a servant carrying a basket in tow. Izer immediately calls Raul, telling him to get Selena to the office ASAP. Just as Selena and Frederick are having a sweet moment in the garden, Raul bursts in, covering his eyes and apologizing. He blurts out that Izer wants to see Selena right away. Annoyed, she wonders if this is what she signed up for. The irony hits her as she realizes she's swapping a romantic moment for an office summons. Clearly not happy, Selena tells Raul she doesn't like bumping into him. Trying to smooth things over, Raul asks her to go see Izer, saying it could get him in trouble if she doesn't. Selena, trying to reassure him, says it's no biggie and asks why he's so down. With a mischievous smile, she calls him over and whispers that she has a secret. Leaning in, she tells him she's planning to outsmart his boss, turning the tables on Izer. Selena sighs that it's been ages since she enjoyed the outdoors, and now her mood's ruined. Determined to make the best of it, she hands Raul some cookies, telling him to eat them all as punishment for spoiling her day. Getting up, she decides to go see Izer, but only because of Raul. She tells Raul to let Izer know she'll be a bit late, she needs to change her clothes. Then she quickly calls Fredrick. A while later in the office, Raul announces that Selena has arrived. Izer, without missing a beat, tells Raul to bring her in. When Selena walks in, Louis quickly says sorry for not saying hi earlier. He mentions he's about to head out but suggests they could grab a coffee or tea sometime. Izer jumps in, telling Selena there's something important she needs to read and motions for her to sit down. Cool as a cucumber, Selena strolls over to Izer's chair and asks what she's supposed to read. She tells Izer to bring it to her. Izer questions what she's up to while Louis makes his exit, mentioning he's got other stuff to handle. Not one to let things slide, Izer walks over to Selena and asks her to stand up. Selena points to another seat, explaining that she prefers the chair she's sitting on. It used to belong to her mom and grandma and is where she gets work done. The other chair, she says, is the secretary's spot. Izer tries to cut through the back and forth, telling Selena to stand up. But Selena's not having any of it. She stays put and insists Izer take the other seat. In a surprising move, Izer picks up the chair with Selena still on it and lifts it up despite her protests. He puts the chair at another table and tells Selena to listen up. He explains that if she wants a high-up position, she's got to have the right skills for it. He points out that so far, Selena hasn't shown she can do anything on her own. It's like he's daring her to step up and prove herself. He gestures to the chair, reminding her of all the hard work her grandma and mom put into their roles. Izer continues, mentioning the big gap between Selena's high self-esteem and her lack of achievements. He calls her conscience pitiful and asks if she feels any shame about this. Selena fires back, stating she's Selena Serenity, descendant of her powerful mom and grandma. She argues that her bloodline alone makes her worthy of the high position, no matter what she's accomplished so far. She adds that no one else should sit in that chair. Izer questions why Selena thinks she can just take the top spot because it's in her family. He calls this a shallow way of thinking and suggests that Selena seems to feel entitled to the position because it's currently up for grabs. Feeling attacked, Selena tells Izer to zip it. She insists he doesn't really get her or what motivates her. Izer challenges Selena to prove her commitment to her family's legacy. He emphasizes that she can't just underestimate the importance of the position. She needs to show she can handle its responsibilities. He even encourages her to ignore him and everyone else, saying all she needs is to earn recognition for what she can do. Izer then drops the big news that Selena's got to run the show for this year's Serenity Hotel anniversary. And it's not just a small gig. We're talking about everything from who's coming to the party, what's going down at the event, and even how things roll once the party's over. It's like her audition for the big chair. If she nails it, she gets the top spot. The room's buzzing with anticipation. This is Selena's shot to show everyone what she's made of. The Serenity Hotel anniversary is a big deal. It's the one day a year when all rooms are empty, kinda like the Super Bowl for the family. Party happens in the summer when the trees are all dressed up in green. The thing about the anniversary party is that it's not just for the elite. Sure, the rich and famous make up most of the guest list, but every now and then, an invitation might find its way to someone outside those circles. But the real golden ticket is getting an invite from the royal family or being named the noblest guest by them. That's like winning the lottery in this world. In this game, an invite is more than just a piece of paper. It can make or break your reputation. It's like a secret message, each one carrying its own meaning. It's a tricky business, making sure everything goes together just right. Kinda like cooking a fancy meal 3, you've got to get every ingredient just right. The goal is to create an unforgettable experience. It's all about knowing the ins and outs, making sure every guest has a great time. Building the guest list is a huge job. That's why Selena's grandma and mom spend the whole month leading up to the party making sure everything's perfect. Selena remembers her grandma telling her how important it was to make sure the party goes off without a hitch. So, she reminds Izer that the big day is just a month away, wondering if he's got it on his radar. In response, he tells her to start prepping, like right now. Caught off guard, Selena's left wondering where to even start. But Izer's got her back. He hands her a book that's like the Bible for these parties. It's got everything from the first year till now, all thanks to Raul's hard work. He tells Selena to get reading and remember every little detail. As she's about to leave, Izer mentions there's a big change in the guest list this year. He asks if she's giving up already, but she's not backing down. She's ready to read the whole thing, but first she needs some water, a cozy blanket, and some comfy shoes. She asks Sway to bring over the documents and suggests they all meet up in a week to discuss everything in detail. Izer can't help but laugh at her princess-like attitude, which immediately sets Selena off. She spins around, clearly annoyed, and demands to know why he's laughing at her. Izer, still grinning, calls her princess and explains that he wants her to read everything right then and there. Selena looks at him like he's lost his mind and points out that the 4 books are pretty thick. It's not something she can finish in a day. Izer, with a smirk, reminds her that she's the one who said they only have a month left. Feeling the pressure of all the planning and scheduling, Selena agrees to take a week to work through everything. She figures if she wants to avoid embarrassing herself on the big day, she might as well enjoy her princess time and read at her own pace. But when she sees that there are more than just the 4 books she'd been told about, she realizes she's got a lot more work ahead of her than she thought. Meanwhile, Lewis is trying to convince Mr. Jackson, the head honcho at Jackson Motors, to check out the Serenity Hotel. Mr. Jackson is grateful for the suggestion and admits that no matter how many times he visits, the hotel always impresses him. He loves the luxury and grandeur and thinks it's the best place in town. Izer jumps in, saying he hopes Mr. Jackson will seriously consider his suggestions. He's excited that they've been able to have such a long conversation on their first meeting and thanks him for coming out so quickly. Izer adds a personal touch, saying he's looking forward to sharing the good news with his wife. He promises to continue discussing the matter with the hotel management and will follow up after he's talked it over with his better half. Mr. Jackson picks up the conversation, remembering a few times when he met Izer's wife, Selena, at the anniversary celebration. He's amazed at how much she's grown since then, from a student to a mature woman. As they shake hands, Mr. Jackson wishes Izer luck with his conversation with Selena. He's hoping for some good news and thinks their partnership could really benefit the hotel in the future. Mr. Jackson then shifts the conversation as he starts to predict the future, saying that in about 5 to 7 years we'll be seeing more cars on the road than horse-drawn carriages. He's pretty stoked about it, but admits he doesn't know much about the auto industry. Izer catches on and teases Mr. Jackson a bit, asking him why he's acting like his wife, Selena, isn't clued in on business stuff. He makes it clear that he and Selena are a team when it comes to running the hotel. From big decisions to the tiniest details, they're on the same page. Izer even asks Mr. Jackson to drop the Miss Selena formality. It's starting to feel kinda weird. Mr. Jackson gets the hint and apologizes for the oversight. Lewis jumps in to lighten the mood, offering to walk Mr. Jackson out. He's also itching to see if Mr. Jackson brought that new car model he'd been raving about. As they wrap up, Izer tells Mr. Jackson they'll touch base later and wishes him a safe trip home. He then tells Raul it's time to head back to the mansion. Once they're in the car, Raul notices Izer is a bit off. He knows from experience that when Izer's mood dips, it won't be long before he's lighting up another cigarette. Izer opens up about Selena a bit. He explains that she didn't really get a chance to learn about business when she was younger. After her family's accident, things got complicated. Even though her mother was managing the family business, Selena was still just a kid and had a hard time taking on responsibilities. Then, as soon as she became an adult, she married Izer and suddenly found herself in a position where she wasn't making her own decisions anymore. It all happened so fast, and she was worried about what might happen if Izer took over the family's assets. She tried to assert her independence, but once Izer became the manager, people stopped paying attention to her. It's just how things go. Once someone takes charge, everyone else kind of fades into the background. Tough break for Selena. It's pretty obvious who's running the show here. When he's not around, it's like she's talking to a wall. People don't even give her the time of day, let alone listen to what she has to say about business. It's like her words just vanish into thin air when he's not there. When they get together, the conversation doesn't go beyond tea or how Mrs. Lanza is doing. Or they'll start chatting about which dress or jewelry looks best on Mrs. Selena. Let's be honest, they're not exactly cheering her on. It's a tough pill to swallow. Even when Mrs. Selena was part of the group, people mainly came over to see and chat with Mr. Izer. Mrs. Selena tried to join in, but it often felt like she was talking to the wind. On the outside, they're a happily married couple, but the truth is, Mrs. Lanza stepped back and handed the business over to an outsider. This move had a domino effect. Everyone started thinking that Mrs. Selena wasn't exactly a business guru. She got labeled as being business challenged. Imagine the once promising kid of the Serenity family ended up feeling ignored and disliked. A young girl with potential, now seen as unfit and mentally drained. People like Jackson, who knew her as a kid, probably still have that image in their heads. Back then, his focus was more on saving Serenity than empowering her. So, even when he saw the not-so-nice treatment towards that little girl, he'd just nod, kind of accept it, and then just brush it off. Sometimes, the bigger picture overshadows the small battles, leaving a young girl stuck in the middle of family drama. Fast forward to today, and she's about ready to give up. Despite his reckless ways and leaving, Serenity has managed to regain its status and power. Tables have definitely turned. So it's about time Raul steps up and stops anyone from belittling Mrs. Selena. After all, with Serenity back on top, she deserves her fair share of respect and recognition. Her reputation isn't just hers, it's theirs too. Even though she might seem like a stray cat now, who knows what she could become with the right guidance. So, even if the rest of the world doesn't get it, they should at least listen to her story and understand where she's coming from. After all, she's the boss, the person Raul's working hard for, and that's something he should always remember. Taking it all in, Raul nods and promises to keep that in mind. When they get home, Izer immediately asks Sway where Selena is. He's eager to see her. Sway tells him she's over at the Annex building. Apparently, after Izer left for the hotel, Selena went there and decided to stay. Dinner? Yep, she had it there too. In his head, Izer puts two and two together. He figures Selena must have grabbed all those documents and found a comfy spot to read them. Back in the office, Raul raises an eyebrow, noticing that Selena took all the documents. But then, he sees the broken leg of the chair. Now, he's playing detective, trying to figure out how that happened. Then it clicks. Didn't he tell Mrs. Selena to memorize every detail in those documents today? That seems a bit extreme. It's like asking someone to pull a rabbit out of a hat. It's pretty clear that's a near impossible task. Izer gives a knowing nod, admitting that anyone would find it a tough ask to chew through all those documents in just a few hours. But Selena? She's cut from a different cloth. When he first landed in the mansion, he had to learn the ropes fast. For Selena, though, her daily life is like a living, breathing version of those documents. He reckons that she might have already soaked up most of the info from those papers. It's as if she's sharpened this skill over time. As the day winds down, Izer heads out and Raul nudges Sway, making a cheeky comment. He points out that it doesn't look like Izer's heading off to his room but seems to be making a beeline for the Annex building. He wonders out loud if that's where he's really headed. Sway, sounding a bit worried, thinks it over. She drops a little knowledge, pointing out that Selena is super protective about the Annex building. Even Frederick, with all his privileges, doesn't get a pass to go inside. It's like Selena's private fortress. The Annex building, standing tall as the oldest structure in the mansion, has a special place in Selena's heart. It's like a snapshot of her childhood, a place where she grew up. This building, unlike the busy main one, is a quiet haven meant only for family members. Given its private nature, the Annex isn't as bustling as the main building. It's more like a treasured hideout, not seeing much foot traffic. And here's the thing, outsiders aren't just waltzing in. Ever since the accident, Selena has pretty much staked a claim on the Annex building. It's like her personal safe space, and she's the boss there. Hardly anyone else steps foot inside, except for a few maids who sneak in for a secret cleaning mission. And guess what? Selena's not a fan. Cleaning team tiptoes in because they're worried that even a tiny bit of dust might mess with her health. Since Frederick moved into the mansion, Selena hasn't been visiting the Annex building as much. As Izer steps inside, he can't help but think about its importance. In his mind, he admits it's the one place in the house that's off limits to him. It was once the family's private hangout, untouched by their debt issues. Now, though, it's empty of any high-end stuff. To Izer, its lack of worth means he couldn't care less about it. It's been a solid 4 years since Izer last stepped foot here, so he's pretty clueless about what's inside. Now, as he finally walks into the building, it's like solving a mystery. To his surprise, the interior isn't decked out in the usual Serenity style. Instead of the typical opulence, there's a strong minimalist vibe that throws him off. He's heard that when she was a kid, Selena had a thing for locking herself away, whether in her room or here in the Annex building. Now, as Izer opens the door, he's hit with a wave of nostalgia. It's like stepping back in time. Everything is frozen in place. Boxes of gifts are gathering dust, shelves are crammed with dolls and stuffed animals, and all her favorite toys are lined up. It's like walking into a scene from her childhood. Every corner of the room radiates a warm family vibe. It's clear as day how much Selena was loved as a child, surrounded by toys that tell tales of her happy childhood. Izer originally came to see how she was doing with the reading, but when he walks in, he finds her sound asleep. A memory comes rushing back, the doctor's words ringing in his ears. Seeing his sleeping princess, Izer can't help but wonder what to do with this snoozing beauty. She's like a grumpy princess who needs a gentle nudge to wake up. Izer carefully picks her up and settles her on the bed, a little taken aback. She looks so different when she's asleep, innocent, relaxed, and just young. It's a side of Selena he rarely gets to see. Usually she's all business, always hustling and bustling around. Looking at her peaceful face, Izer can't help but think that this is how she should be at her age, carefree and not weighed down by business matters. Whenever she's in his presence, it's like she ages 100 years, taking on the persona of an old hag. His eyes wander over to her plate, noticing that she barely touched her food. It's a familiar sight, reminds him of when they first met and she hardly ate anything. Then his gaze shifts to the documents scattered on the table. He's surprised to see that she's already halfway through them. As he leafs through the pages, he realizes something. Selena might act all grown up, but her ability to understand not just the timeline of events, but also the intricate political landscape is something else. It's like she's mapping out her past, present, and future right there on those pages. What strikes him is how confidently she tackles these documents, even though she didn't have any prior knowledge. She has this way of breaking things down and jotting notes in her own unique style. Izer has to give it to her, she's doing an amazing job. He recalls her mentioning that she was always top of her class at Dallencourt. It's like she's always been the star student, the cream of the crop. Putting 2 and 2 together, Izer realizes that Selena must have graduated as the valedictorian, the top dog of academic achievement. Suddenly, Selena stirs and yawns, blinking her eyes open sleepily. For a moment, she thinks she sees Frederick leaving the room. But then she realizes she's not in the main house, but the annex. Could it be Brian? As her eyes adjust to the dim light, she gasps in surprise. It's not Frederick or Brian. It's Izer. Seems the story of Serena and Izer is just getting started. Want us to continue? Comment Serena below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, ciao.